Today I wanted to test how far AI can go when it comes to finishing a 3D design. I started with a really simple geometry in Rhino, just a base form, and then sent it to Nano Banana, an AI that adds intricate details and patterns on top of your model. The goal wasn't to make a perfect project, but to see what kind of design language this tool could create from something minimal. Then I refined the result with Magnific AI, applied some quick materials, and finally brought it to life with Kling AI for the animation. Let's see what happens when you let AI design the details. Alright, so before we jump into Nano Banana, we first need a base geometry that's gonna serve us to test Nano Banana out. And I'm going to be creating it here in Rhino. So the first thing that I'm going to do is jump into a lateral view, which is this right side view. And if you're using Rhino 2, I strongly recommend you using curves, because it's way easier to start modeling with curves instead of a primitive object such as a square or a cylinder. Without further ado, let's jump right into it. I'm going to be typing in polyline here, and I'll also make sure to have the grid snap turned on. This way I can snap to the origin, and I'm thinking that this geometry is going to be 6 meters in height, so around 2 floors. So let's go ahead and type in 6m here, click once. And I'm also going to be using a length of 6 meters. And then let's add a nice diagonal gesture over here so that we avoid ending up with just a square. So something like this, still a very primitive, simple geometry, but with a little bit of design there. Now I'm going to jump into a perspective view, because now that we have the height and length of our shape, we need a width. And for this, I'll be extruding this curve, and the fastest way to do that is by clicking on this sphere from our gumball. Again, 6 meters I think would do, and there we go. This is our very simple shape that we're going to be using to test Nano Banana out. And now, because I'm aiming to have a 3D render by the end of this video, I want to make a screenshot of this, but not on this shaded view. Instead, I'm going to be changing it from shaded to Arctic. And this way, we have a little bit more of depth on our 3D model. And it's gonna be easier for Nano Banana to figure it out. Now I'm just going to be placing our viewport camera somewhere around this point. And in order for us to take a high resolution screenshot from Rhino, we can go ahead and type in view capture to file. In view capture to file, you can choose a custom resolution. And in my case, I'm going to be using a size of 1080 by 1080 pixels. Make sure that the scale here is set as 1. And if you're using the same resolution as I am, make sure to uncheck the lock viewport aspect ratio so that you can just type in whichever resolution you want. And once you have all of this, just hit OK. Alright, and as you can see, I've jumped into Photoshop, because one thing about Nano Banana, we actually need to explain things to it in the most simplest way. So I figured that we can actually number these 3 faces that we've got. So for example, if I go ahead and tell Nano Banana that on face number 1, I want to have glass with some window frames, it's gonna better understand what I want. So I'm going to go into layers for this, and with a simple brush, and it's gonna be a hard round brush, I'm going to change this color to red, and with it, I'm going to create an outline of each face and then number it. So we've got 1 and 2, and finally the third one. And I'm going to number this 1, this one 2, and finally the biggest one 3. Once you have this small diagram, you can go ahead and save it. Now, if you're having trouble finding Nano Banana, I recommend just Googling Nano Banana Gemini. Now, once you're here in this page, click on Get Started. Then go ahead and click on Chat. And the first thing I'm going to do is to show the base in geometry without any annotations alongside the dimensions. So this way, the AI will understand the scale that we're working with. So to add files, just click on this positive icon here and upload file. Okay, so here we go. Now the next step is to explain it what we're going to be doing. I have this 3D model. The dimensions of this shape is 6 by 6 by 6 meters. Also notice it has a diagonal gesture at the bottom. Now we've defined the scale and dimensions. Next, I'm going to tell it my objective. I want you to help me finish this 3D model with the instructions I'm about to give you. So again, we need to explain things to Nano Banana as simple as possible. Now I'm going to be uploading our small diagram. Now let's tell it I have numbered each surface to communicate with you more efficiently. On surfaces 1 and 2, I want glass with window frames. Okay, not too bad, and it looks quite interesting. And as you can see, it has taken a little bit of surface number 3 and added some glass with window frames, which it doesn't look bad at all, to be honest with you. I could use this. But if you're not happy with this result, for example, you can just go ahead and rerun this turn by clicking on this icon. In my case, I think I'm gonna take it, but I'm sure that if we rerun the turn multiple times, it will end up giving us what we want. Now, one thing about Nano Banana is that once it does something, it's a little bit tricky to undo it. And for the sake of learning here, I'm going to actually ask it to remove the glass and window frames from surface number 3. So let's go ahead. Please remove the glass and window frames from surface number 3. Alright, so as you can see, it's a little bit tricky to remove something that Nano Banana has already done. Instead, it's better if you rerun the first command multiple times until you get the desired result. If you don't want to lose this image, for example, just download it and rerun the command. Now I want to add some material to surface number 3, probably black wood. Let's go ahead and type it in. Now add a black wooden material to surface number 3. Awesome, this is looking pretty good. Now we need to add a door, so let's go ahead and add it on this surface right here. Please create a door on surface number 3. The door must have 2 meters in height, or let's go with 2.5 meters instead, with 90 centimeters in width. Alright, and the door is huge, so I'm going to rerun this prompt. And it's still doing it. In that case, we can go ahead and use this image and just draw a small door here. And I'll be using this snipping tool. So let me grab this image, now with a red marker. Awesome, so I'm going to be copying this image, and to paste it, I can right click and paste. Or just use Ctrl+V. Now, I don't want to confuse the AI, so let's delete these two. Create a door on surface number 3. Use a red marked area as reference for the height and width. Alright, and it's actually much better, but it's still overscaled. I think we can leave this for the AI in Photoshop. And continue from this point here. And now, for the next step, I want some extra details on the interior. And again, remember that this is supposed to be a 2-floor office. So let's go ahead and tell it to add a 2-floor office in the interior. And here we go, here's our result, and it's looking amazing. It has even added an entrance on the third surface that we were looking for. And this time it has nailed the scale. Finally, we can go ahead and add a green terrace at the top. So let's go ahead and tell it to add one. Okay, so this is not looking bad at all, but maybe we would need some handrails at the top. And this is a little bit too much, so I'd rather just delete this result and stick with the one we have right here. Next, it's time to create some kind of environment for this 3D render now. So in this case, I want this office to be in the woods, for which I'll be typing in, make the environment a forest. And because I didn't delete the last prompt where I asked for the wooden handrails, it has also added them here, and these are looking a little bit better actually, so we can leave them there. But however, as you can see, it actually blends too much with the forest and we can barely appreciate the architecture. So in this case, what we can do is to make this scene at nighttime, which is a pretty easy thing to do here in Nano Banana. And this is much better. As you can see, we can now appreciate the design and the whole interior. Finally, I want to give it a little bit of storytelling, for which I'll be adding a walkway that goes to the architecture alongside a person walking towards it. And this is going to be working just fine. This looks very good. Now, to refine our image, we can use Magnific AI and maybe a little bit of Photoshop. Okay, so once in here, we're going to be using the creative tool because it will enhance our image overall. It's going to be enhancing the details, the lighting, and everything on it basically. Once we upload the image, I'm only going to use the factor of 2x, and on the prompt here on Magnific AI is not really necessary because we can control everything on the presets. Now the creative setting, it's a little bit exaggerated at times, so in here in presets we can go from custom to subtle. We only want a subtle change to our image, as the only thing that we're looking for is to enhance the details and lighting. While for the optimize for setting, we're going to be changing it from standard to films and photography. It's the best one for architectural visualization. Finally, on engine, we can go with Illusion, Sharpie, or Sparkle. So Illusion is gonna give even more creativity to the AI, while the Sharpie method, it's going to maintain all the details where they're at. In this case, I want to add a little bit more of life to our visual, so I'm going to pick Illusion. Now click on Upscale, and let's wait for the results. So here's the before and after. There's not much going on, to be honest with you, because the creativity is set as -3. If I go ahead and take this to 2, for example, and the HDRI, which will control the detail level, to 1, we can have an even more interesting result. So let's go ahead and hit on Upscale again. And now we can see a big difference between these two. As you can see, we have a lot more of detail on the person, the environment, and even the reflections of our design. So once you're happy with this result, just click on this arrow. I usually download it as PNG because that way we don't lose any quality when transferring the image to other tools. And before wrapping this video up, I'm going to enhance the image in Photoshop. The reason I want to do this is because Nano Banana tends to give it a little bit of a green tint overall, so it doesn't look that natural. In order to change that, I can go ahead into the adjustment layer, then color balance, and bring this slider towards the red color over here. Maybe just a value of 3 will do. As for the magenta and green tones, I can go ahead and type in a value of -3 instead. Maybe that's a little bit too much. We can go with a value of 2 here and a value of -2 down here. Now the image is a little bit too yellowish, so we can go ahead and type a value of 3, but maybe a value of 10 works best. If you don't want the icon down here on the bottom right corner, just select the visual, then select the area, right click on it, and go ahead and pick the delete and fill section option. And that's it. Once you have your image ready and you want to go even further, we can go ahead and animate this using Kling AI. In Kling AI's website, you want to go to try it now. And on the left side, we're going to be jumping into video. On the AI video generator, I usually go with video 2.1. It's the best one for any dynamics, and it's only going to be costing you 35 points. Let me just upload the image here. And the good thing about Kling AI is that you don't need a very long prompt for it. So I'll be using camera walks towards architecture, slowly, person walking, naturally. Then click on generate. And here's the final result. Not bad at all. So that's the result, starting from a plain shape and ending with something completely unexpected. I think tools like Nano Banana are changing how we approach design, especially in early concept stages. If you want to explore this workflow yourself, you can download the base 3D model, the refined render, and the final animation on my Patreon. The link is in the description. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next experiment.